Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I am Lala Angela Wang, your host to Range Woman, the variety show. So Range Women are essentially my description of the amazing women in my world that have multiple passions, multiple focuses, and perhaps they do have multiple responsibilities but here's the difference. Instead of feeling like they're juggling, they're actually flowing in between all these different states with ease, flow, and plenty of pleasure. Actually, today I get to experience the big O in having pleasure without, the thing. Oh my goodness me. So, today gives me a real pleasure to introduce one of my figure six sisters, Emma Clayton, all the way from the UK because I'm in Australia. So for me, I also get really excited when I get to interview people outside of Australia. And in a way, I'm very grateful for COVID. Because of COVID, I get to meet all these amazing women. So if you're watching us live, please connect with us and comment. We love comments. We love interacting with you. And if you're watching the replay, hashtag Range Woman, so we can come back and still say hello and still be in the party vibe. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Emma on. Hello, Emma.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah,
Good morning, by the way.
I know, yeah, it's 8 a.m. here. So, yeah, I'm feeling fresh and ready to start my day. So thanks for having me on.
You look like just...
like I just stepped out of the salon. Yeah, I brushed my hair today.
It's really funny. Someone asked me the other day and I'm like, oh, your hair looked different. I'm like, yeah, I brushed it.
Yeah, we're actually in lockdown here in London, in the UK again. So we're halfway through, well, nearly halfway through.
Actually, remind me to ask you about that thing that you're running.
Okay.
As the second wave lockdown. But the first question I really want to ask you, for those of you who don't know Emma, she was actually recently still in a corporate career, earning good money. For 20 years, you were in your corporate roles?
Yeah, I know I don't look old enough, do I?
No. How brave were you, though? Like, it takes a lot of courage. Like, 20 years, that's literally majority of your adult life.
Mm-hmm. Really? It was over half of my life at that point. Yeah, I'd spent in the one company as well.
Ew, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you have so many good friends and so many memories because I follow you, I stalk you on LinkedIn. It's like, it looked like you loved your career even up until the point where you had to say goodbye and go, I'm moving on to my next chapter. So what made you make the move and how did you know that it's time?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, 20 years, I got to the point where I was offered my last kind of promotion was this promotion I've been like gunning for years, like probably 5 years. And it was at the end of the day when I stopped pushing for it, it was kind of offered to me on a plate and I took it and it was a great opportunity, but it also wasn't all it cracked up to be. And I think I found my anxiety and everything increased with the increasing responsibility. And I knew it was a risk when I took this promotion because it was kind of a project. It was a real role and a real team, but it was a new team being set up outside of the organization. And like the kind of premise was, well, we don't know how long this is going to last. We can only hope that there'll be a role at the end of it. So for me, it was a big risk to take it in the first place because I didn't feel like I was a risk taker. But I did. And actually that reality that the team didn't last came a little bit sooner. Oh, I don't know if you lost me there. So the reality of that role ending came sooner. So after 18 months, the team was we lost our executive sponsor and we were put at risk. So they had to do something with us. And my role as the head of strategy and operations was put at risk of redundancy because it was no longer required. So I was faced with this decision. I was like, okay, well, I kind of knew this was the worst case scenario, and I'd kind of accepted it as the worst case scenario, which to me didn't feel too bad. And so I was just faced with a decision, really. It was the first time I kind of imagined I'd be there for my entire life, which in hindsight feels a little bit sad. But this really gave me an opportunity to go, well, what would I do with my life if I wasn't in the corporate world? And it just allowed me that space to really consider it. And I think it was, in hindsight, it was a brave move, because one of my senior leaders actually created a role for me to keep me on. And I went to Zurich. I flew to Zurich to have lunch with him and talk about it. And it's almost like I heard myself saying it, or I witnessed myself saying, "Thank you so much, but I'm gonna go. I'm leaving." And I was like, "Oh, there was the decision." So yeah, it was a bold move, but it's not one I regret at all, even though I had the most amazing career.
So from looking at the things that you do, I'm going to put a bold assumption out there. Because Emma and I, we haven't really known each other for long, but I just love her energy so much. Like, even with some of her marketing materials, they are quite bold. So I'm almost going to say you're a bold person. But would I be right in saying you're also quite spiritual in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, my spiritual path has definitely opened up since I left the corporate world, unsurprisingly. But it had already started. And actually, when I made my decision, I was in Bali, which is a very spiritual place, right? And I was on a yoga retreat, and I was doing a lot of the inner work to really look at my desires, I guess, for a different lens, not one where I know that I'm earning this much and I can pay my mortgage off by this date and get that car, but really what do I want to be doing in my life? What do I love? How do I love spending my time? And what am I good at? And what do I want to develop further? So yeah, it's really deepened, and it will continue to deepen. As you know, the world opens up when you kind of venture deeper. It's just fascinating. I love it.
So my question to you was did you think spirit kind of guided you to this path and in making that decision as well? And it's sort of when you talk about how you almost just you just said it, and your head kind of, your logic kind of had to catch up and go, oh, well, I guess I said it.
Yeah, I definitely think, I definitely realize now I've always been very intuitive, and that's probably my kind of guidance. I don't feel like I hear spirit or anything, but I definitely feel like I have this inner knowing, and I sense stuff, and I know the difference between knowing and knowing.
Yeah.
And I think I've always had that from a very, very young age, being very intuitive. And I kind of I didn't want to be always very intuitive. So a big part of my teens, naturally, I guess, kind of rebel against that sort of thing and kind of ignore it and put it in a box. And it wasn't until my kind of early 30s that I really let it out of the box again. So yeah, I do think I'm definitely guided, but it comes from somewhere inside rather than hearing or feeling spirit as such.
Which is actually one of the clairs, as they call it, is inner knowing. And I relate to that so much, because I used to I was like you, I used to just ignore and go oh no, that's just some BS's, I'm making this up. So for those of you, well, those of us really, who don't know you, tell us about who is Emma? Who is Emma Clayton, and how do you arrived at this point throughout, I guess, a summary of who are you growing up? How did you get into corporate? And kind of how did you end up onto this path?
Yeah, so I'm from the southeast Kent in Dover, so we're closest point to France, so we're only 22 miles away from France. across the English Channel. Yeah, so I'm born and bred in the area actually, and I live 2 doors up from my parents where I grew up, and that wasn't part of the plan. But I'll come back if I remember. I'll come back to that. So I just had quite a normal childhood. I was a gymnast when I was like 4 or 5. Yeah, and it was kind of a big part of my childhood was being very sporty. I was into netball and hockey and all sorts. But gymnastics was kind of a big part of my life because I trained, I was a competitive gymnast. I wasn't that amazing, but I was pretty good. But I think with that comes like a real body awareness from an early age. Yep. So in a lineup of girls, you used to like literally stand from the shortest to the tallest to start of an evening, and you just end up comparing your body in a leotard, you know.
Why from the shortest to the tallest?
I don't know. I think it just looks neat. That's how you have to stand. It was a very disciplined kind of sport, if you like. So there was very much like you had to stand in a certain way, and I think I liked it, but actually I realised in hindsight that there was a lot of conditioning involved in that as well. So that was a big part of my life growing up. I was very body aware, and I think when I got to sort of secondary school and was subjected to sort of older girls bullying, probably a bit of jealousy there. But then later on, the boys really kind of started pushing on buttons. Like they would call me Thunder Thighs, and like the boys actually got a petition out against me. I don't know what to do what, but you know, I know it was just one of those very childish things. I remember that all these boys signed this petition against Emma Clayton. I don't know. But it was really mean, and I turned to food as a bit of a crutch at a very early age, so sort of 11, 12. And I just realised if I walked home and spent my bus money on chocolate, I felt better. I'd eat my chocolate on my walk home. I really got away with it because I was very active. And yeah, I had that escape for that moment, if you like. And I was always on my own, and I liked being on my own in my bedroom and being really introspective and reflective. And but at the same time, I was a very sociable bunny. I'm an extrovert for sure, but I like that. I like being on my own and having my own kind of company and stuff. Anyway, fast forward, I guess, I left school at 18, didn't know what I wanted to do at university. I just knew I wanted to earn money. So I went and I was fortunate enough to get a job. And I'd always worked. I'd worked since I was like 13 as well. So I'd had a Saturday job, and then, so I'd always worked. And I got this job, and it was in a reinsurance company. I didn't know what reinsurance was. I didn't really understand insurance at that age. And it was like walking into this place that just spoke this different language. And I was like, what the hell is this? But I found myself there 20 years later. And I think what I learnt was I have this insatiable, like, hunger for learning and growing. And what I found was I'd do a job and I'd want to, like, not get good at it necessarily. I'd want to understand what I was doing and really wrap my head around it. And then I'd get bored and I'd be like, what are they doing over there? So I'd follow my nose and kind of, well, now I'm interested in what they're doing over there. So I went from I started in an admin role, and then I got into a technical role where we were assessing life and health claims and saying whether or not they could be paid. And insurers aren't as bad as they come across. They always pay where they can. And then from there, I was like, I'm not a technical person. I don't want to sit there with a big fat file and read through it. I just want to knock out 10. You know, I was more productive. So I went back into like an operational kind of role, but as a team leader. And I loved having a team of people. I loved helping them grow and develop. And I kind of found myself on a leadership path. But still, I wasn't happy. Like if I got bored there, I wanted to move there. So then I went to the front end and I did a sales and marketing stint. And then I went to, where did I go next? I went back into a technical role, but as a manager and a leader. And then I went into like a global role where we were doing kind of processy type projects, and I got to work on some really cool stuff around, funnily enough, Strategy 2020. So this is like back in 2015, we were doing Strategy 2020. So just really, like, I loved being involved behind the scenes and knowing everything and having my fingers in all these different pies. That sounds a bit wrong, but and also having that big overarching picture. And then I got that latest offer, which was really cool. It was head of strategy and operations, which is the big picture and the detailed stuff.
In the detail,
I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. But it was also set up outside of the company to work with like startups in the tech space and innovation space to like almost disrupt the company from like the inside out, but using externals. And it was really cool. Like I set up in Boston, Massachusetts, as well as in London. So I was doing lots of travel.
It's like an opportunity of a lifetime, right?
Oh my God, it was amazing. We were going to like startup events, and we were in all of like the juicy conversations around what was coming up, and like some really cool people. And we actually set up in London, in King's Cross. We had this amazing space that we found, and we had like someone come in to do some artwork around what we were doing, and we had really cool like furniture and stuff that we were able to, so we were really able to like buck the trend of our company, which was very corporate, very Swiss, old-fashioned kind of grey, and we were able to bring colour to it, so it was like really like kind of cool. And so I was really grateful. I loved my career, and I learned a lot about myself in the process, and that's definitely translated into what I do today in terms of like this, being able to see this big picture of where one person kind of wants to go and needs to go, and then like being able to drill into what's stopping them and being able to like pull out the roots of the problems of along the way. And like I love it, and being able to learn and grow
at the same time. The way that I see it, like people are just like corporate, right? If you actually look at people and the way that our brains are programmed, the way that we work, I look at every single one of my clients almost like my corporate project. Right? They all have there's always that big picture strategy, but there's also the nitty-gritties where you really need to get in and get to know them. It's like when you entrench yourself into a project, you then get to see the little problems that you need to tweak and adjust. So my question to you is, looking at your repertoire of the kind of things that you do and the kind of modalities that you practice in your business now, there's a vast variety of things that you can, I don't want to say do on your client because that sounds really wrong, that you can adopt in terms of any situation depending on the client's need. And I can kind of see what you were saying about how you get bored. So then you're such a learner that you want to learn different things. So at what point in your life have you started, or did you start to tap into personal development and learning all these different modalities?
Yeah, so it was probably 5 years ago, really. So I started with my first health coach online, and so I wanted to go to lose weight, to find a sustainable way of eating, that kind of thing. And she was a functional nutritionist who had a focus on weightlifting, and I loved my CrossFit at the time. So I went and learned from her, but I got so much more than I bargained for because she was also in the mindset kind of space. So an introduction into things like journaling and gratitude, those kind of tools that I hadn't necessarily been opened up to before. And I started getting into podcasts and TED Talks, and still kind of very masculine in the approach, if you like. And then it wasn't really until I started to think about what I could do outside of my corporate career that I started to learn more about nutrition. So I did a little, I don't know, level 3 something in nutrition whilst I was still in the corporate. And then I signed up to nutrition and lifestyle coaching diploma, which is the first year of a nutritional therapy degree, whilst I was still working. And I got into that and I was like, oh my God, what have I done here? Because I was like, I do not need to understand the workings of a cell. This is where I can just go, I just need to know. Like, what do I need to know to understand, what's going on in the body when stress is occurring, like the impact of food on your blood sugar levels, that kind of stuff. So that was definitely a eye opener. Like, I'm not an academic learner. Like, I do not need to go through that kind of process at all. So that was a good learning. And then, so I'd left corporate by this time, and I'd always had a fascination with like language and like the words that we use and why we say things we do, and then why we behave the way we behave. And like, still from my perspective at this time, because I had this relationship with food that unfolded, and I had this whole body image stuff and this inner chatter around not being good enough, and that translated to imposter syndrome in my work. So I never quite felt like I fitted or that I was good enough or doing a good enough job. So NLP was something that was sort of floated out there, and I thought, yeah, I'll do that. So I signed up to an NLP practitioner's course, and kind of got what I needed from that as well. Like, there was a lot of tools in there that I've never used since. But I got the, like, what I needed. I think this is the thing. I take what I need at the time. So I use, like, NLP is kind of like this big overarching thing, if you like. It's like a language, like how we process, how we see the world, that kind of thing. That's useful. And then I decided that I really wanted to niche down in the work that I was doing to help people with their relationship with food and body. So I signed up with a guy called Mark David, who runs the Institute for the Psychology of Eating in the US. And
wow, I didn't know there's such a thing.
Yeah, well,
he's so cool.
He's been around, like, he was one of the podcasts I listened to 5 years previous, right? So, and I used to be fascinated about how he would take someone from being so stuck in the, like, the binge eating for me and that mentality, and how he would literally help them come out the other side. And here I was learning from him in his certification. So that was just fascinating. And again, I kind of took what I wanted to from that, or needed to from that. And then I decided I feel a little bit like constricted, just helping people with their relationship with food and body. And I kind of wanted to be like niche out, not niche out, like come back up to that bigger picture, right? So so I did a little thing around stress management, and then I kind of got a bit fascinated by the deeper inner work that you get to do. And I met this beautiful woman who at a networking event locally, and she was a Reiki teacher, Jikiden Reiki, which is the very first form of Reiki coming out of Japan. It was where it was founded. And I was like, well, I have no idea what this Reiki thing is, so do some Reiki on me. And she also did this heart circle where you kind of come back, in the heart circle, you come back to yourself. So you actually feel your feelings. And I was like, so I had this fully immersive experience where I came back into my body, felt energy for the first time running through my veins. Well, not my veins, but my energetic body. And then I also had this experience where she took me into my body so I could feel my feelings, but in a really like safe, beautiful space. And I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. Like, I hadn't actually experienced it before. And I'm like 39 at this point, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been missing out my entire life on experiencing energy, like just this life force that's running through us, and my feelings, which is energy in motion, right? It wants to be felt. And I'd suppressed. It was the moment I realized I'd suppressed my emotions for so long, and there was so much that needed to come up. And that's kind of sparked off a whole nother kind of, series of learnings. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever stop, right? But so this year I've done theta healing, which is again quite a spiritual modality, but I like it because it's basically using the theta brainwave state, which is a scientific thing, to explore your beliefs, like really dig deep on your beliefs, but also be able to pull it and replace it on not just this core level, but on a genetic and a history level. So past lives, genetics, so DNA, and also on a soul level, because we have soul lessons that we're here to learn as well. And that kind of fascinates me. But I did that this summer in line with the JK method of Beliefetics, which again is a very like, get your journal out, let's reveal some of those subconscious limiting beliefs that we've got going on. So that's a real nice masculine approach, and do the more kind of spiritual pulling and replacing of beliefs. And it's just like, okay, I need to stop now so that I myself can kind of calibrate with everything that I've learned, and like really embed it in how I work with people now. So that's all for now. It won't be all forever. But for now, at least this year, for the rest of this year.
I'm so glad you talked about how you need a calibration phase, though. It's like, you know, when you have different things, we all have different ways of processing. And it's actually really important to allow yourself to, I call it letting the dust settle.
Yeah, completely.
And looking at, like, when the dust settles and they start to create sediment, it depends on which part of the river that you're discovering the settlements. They will have different layers and different, almost like soil makeup, right? And it's from there you discover your own genius, because I could see like all these things that you're learning, there's different layers, and coming from it, it's really, you then create your own modalities and your own systems. And maybe instead of a JK belief addict, which is Jana's method, it becomes a EC, I don't know what it is, method. How amazing is that?
Yeah, it's so cool. And I can see it unraveling now. And I just got off because today's coaching day with Jana, and just her listening to me talk a bit like I have been now. She's like, yeah, I can see exactly what you're meant to be doing. And it's that initiation of the inner work. And I'm like, yes, that's it. And that actually really plays into my human design, which is another thing I've kind of like trying not to get obsessed about.
What's your human design?
I'm a manifester. Same as Michelle.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
My job is to initiate.
Yeah.
So to initiate that inner work for people.
To trigger people as well, by the way.
Yeah. we don't trigger in the nicest possible way.
Hello, I'm just giving you a poke. Can you feel it?
But it is like, I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's it. That is it, absolutely it. So it's all becoming clearer. But it's a journey, right? We're on a journey, and it's like now I'm at the stage where I get to enjoy it, because I don't fear any of it, and I feel deeply supported in everything that I'm doing. You know, I have a personal trainer that's supporting me with my nutrition and my movement. I've got the healers around homeopathy and Chinese medicine, and flower essences that are helping me sort of bring some older stuff up and really
have you
healed them.
I guess my question
go
is,
on.
no, you're right. Have you always felt so supported? Have you always had a team around you?
So during my corporate career, I was always very proactive at saying I want a mentor, and I chose my mentors. So, so from that perspective, yes. And I always chose characters that were the least like me. They were mainly women. In the end, they were women. They started off being guys, but I didn't think anything of it. But eventually I wanted to seek out the women in the organization that had kind of a level of success, but were very, like, I felt they were very different to me. And actually what I learned was they're very similar in terms of their fears and their insecurities, right? So so from that perspective, yes. And I've been fortunate that I've had really good line managers and people in the organisation, because I'm such a, like, relationships are so important to me. I would build a good, solid relationship with my line manager, and then when they move on and up, you know, they've also got my back somewhere else in the organisation. So and my team, I always really felt supported by my team majority of the time. So yeah, from that perspective. And then like I said, I got my first health coach when I was like 37. I first walked into a therapist office when I was 34. So up until that point, probably not, but I didn't know I needed support. I didn't realize I was just like kind of charging through life, railroading things along the way, and just in general self-destruct mode through my 20s at least. So yeah, but now with a one-to-one coach and certain healers that are working with me, I definitely feel very supported, and I'm supporting myself as well, right? For the first time in my life. And I think when you're an entrepreneur coming out of that corporate world, you realize it's just you now. So you've got to build up that support network around you. But I realize that's something I do quite naturally.
I think so. I think it's more translating it from a corporate sense to a personal sense.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you're very good at your, like you said, your people skills and your connections. And it's just sometimes we forget that whatever we create in corporate, we also need to bring to our personal life as well. So this next question, you talked about imposter syndrome. How much has imposter syndrome played in your life when you started your business, and how did you use the tools that you've got to overcome it?
So much. It's interesting because I wrote a chapter in a multi-author book recently, and I finished it around the time that I left corporate because it really felt like it closed that chapter for me. And I said at the time, what I hadn't realized was that leaving corporate wouldn't like cure my imposter syndrome overnight, right?
It makes it worse.
Oh my God, it definitely got worse before it got better. So I think, you know, I woke up on day one of being like unemployed, if you like, and I had no emails in my inbox. I had no one needing me for anything. You know, it sounds like a delight, right? But all of a sudden, I've gone from being like super reactive to like being on it and like responding and
I literally just felt that emptiness in my stomach. It's almost like a punch in your stomach. Going, oh my God, it's like my whole identity has been taken out of me.
Yeah, who was I? Who the frick am I anymore? I don't know who I am outside of being needed, because I really had like people would come to Emma Clayton for certain things in that organisation. And I'm like, who am I without this? And I went from like moments of like, I went to a yoga class at 10:30 in the morning one morning, and Whitney Houston gave me one moment in time where I'm more than I thought I could be came on, and I was crying as I was driving to yoga because I felt free. And then I had moments of absolute terror because I was like, what the frick have you done? What the hell have you done?
You have just ruined your career and your life.
Just throwing it all away. And that was definitely my parents' voice. It's like, what? Why would you do that? So yeah, and then you kind of go, okay, well, I've got this new kind of found freedom. I've got this energy, and I'm gonna put myself out there, which is really scary, but I do the scary things and I face myself. And then you start looking and you go, oh my God, there's all these amazing people out there doing amazing stuff already. And who the hell am I to come in and do this? So yeah, it was huge. And I would say it's only really this year, in the last 6 months, that I've really started to embody some of the tools around just like, I think the biggest thing is probably my looking after myself to the point that I can be that clear channel to allow my intuition to lead me. But a lot of it has been about needing to uncondition or decondition from some of the things. As a manifester as well, right? Human design manifester, we're apparently the most conditioned of energy types. And like, I think I said, it even goes back to my gymnastics days, that discipline was a real conditioning. Because I'm a real free spirit. I like to be spontaneous, but I had so many to-do lists in my corporate job, one for every project, one for every team member, so many to-do lists. Now I don't have any, because I massively rejected a lot of that stuff in corporate, and now I'm just finding a bit of a balance, right? It's like not a perfect balance, but just like take the things that I know support me, but also give that freedom to allow me to be who I am, and then just keep using the courage to show up and put myself out there, but keeping it real. I think this is the biggest lesson for me in the imposter syndrome, is I wasn't being myself. Right? It's not that I was feeling an imposter because I wasn't being myself. It's not that I wasn't worthy enough to be in that role or good enough. It's just that I wasn't bringing my whole self, and I didn't know who that was. And that's the difference with this line of work, is that I've done enough work now and I will always continue to do the work, but I'm uncovering who it is that I am and what my place is, like what my unique place is in this world and in this online space of coaching and mentoring, and just holding the faith that that is what I'm meant to be doing, and that there are people out there that will respond to that because that is what they need. So yeah, it's, for me, it's all about keeping it real, like showing up fully as me, warts and all, and just being unapologetic.
Well, you're definitely showing up as you, what's and all, and being unapologetic on social media with some of your recent graphics. And I really I applaud you for that. It's not easy. It's like one of the conversation I had with one of the ladies I know, with Wendy Jesper, the other day. She's like, oh my God, some days I just want to lay on grass naked. And I said to Wendy, I'm like, oh my God, I would so desire to do that, except where my garden is, there's like 2 or 3 other floors above me. I think my neighbors would be horrific. Horrified of this Asian lady that just go naked first thing in the morning in the yard. Or they might be really happy that they get to see something.
Very likely.
So I'm going to ask you, this is going to be, I think it's going to be my second last question, because I do have one that I want to ask you about your current program, because that is I think it's a very good program for not just people in isolation, but for the soul, really. What is the biggest thing that you have learned about yourself throughout your journey of entrepreneurship so far?
Oh, you asked the best question.
Thank you.
The biggest lesson about myself is that I've always been good enough, and there really is it's just such a waste of life to spend any time doubting it, any more time doubting it.
That is so good. Like, my heart literally just went like, yes. And I think only if more of us know about that. Like, I often imagine how amazing would it be if, all of our kids are given the gift of knowing that they're good enough.
Yeah.
Right. We would be probably out of jobs, but we wouldn't need to do the things that we do.
Yeah.
And seeing our clients and seeing our family, seeing people that we love going through all the suffers and struggle, life would be so much easier if we all believe that we are good enough in the most compassionate, kind, and loving way. Yeah, really. That is so beautiful. Which really leads me to tell us about this thing that you're running.
Yeah.
What is it called again?
Uplifted.
Uplifted. That's it.
So we were going into another lockdown here in the UK, and I was thinking, I was just about to go live and just talk about how I was planning to kind of go about it this time, now knowing what we know now. And I just thought, why go through this alone? Like, let's just open it up for people to come into my world and see it real time. And I literally just thought of, rather than it being lockdown, be uplifted. Like, and we're locking down to go in, like, we're inside to do the inner work. So let's just take this opportunity to like just sort of teeter inside and see what that involves, but in a real like uplifted way. So it was just a 30-day low cost, £30, which is about 55 Aussie dollars.
Thanks for doing the math for us.
I know it's about double for Aussie.
Yeah, roughly.
So it's just, I've got a small group of people in there. There's 20 or so people in there now. I've left the doors open so you can join us anytime. And literally every day I'm just showing up live and saying either this is what I'm doing today, or this is how I'm shifting things up, or sharing of ideas and tips and tricks of how to raise our vibration and our energy and stay positive, not just stay positive, but actually see how we can switch our mood from being quite like meh to which I found myself in last week. I was like a real meh, and through some of these things you can actually, like a simple home selfie shoot just made me so, like, I just had so much fun with it. I can be silly and a bit daft, which is a big part of my personality, and they come through on the photos. And a couple of the girls did it in there, and they loved it too. So I
even love how you just set up your kitchen, and then how you, like, where your kitchen is, you literally can see the outside, and it's just like, how can you not feel uplifted standing in that kitchen? That is so good. So Emma, how can we still join that group? How can we still join the uplifted 30-day movement?
So if you head to my profile, you'll see my long picture, my cover photo, and there's all the links and the details in there.
Beautiful, nice and easy.
Yeah.
And are you Emma Clayton across all social medias as well?
I am emmaclayton.exo on Instagram and Facebook for my business profile, and just me everywhere else.
And you're also on LinkedIn for the
corporate. I'm also on LinkedIn, of course. Yes.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's been such a pleasure. Like I said earlier, I really do feel the more I get to know you, you're almost like my UK twinsy. Like the journey that we have gone through,
Love that.
I can see so much similarity, and it's so good that you get to help people and initiate that first process, and because it's actually the hardest, right? It's the hardest because you don't know what you don't know, and it's going from that you don't know what you don't know to you know what you don't know, and then not beating yourself up, but just go, okay, I know what I'm missing now, but I'm gonna take this big giant step forward. And quite often I think people get into a stage where their life is falling apart, and that's when they go, okay, I need to have this change. And it's so good to have someone like you supporting them, going, it doesn't have to be this way. Let's just initiate it before the world falls apart, so we can slowly take it gently rather than go, oh my God, what do I do now?
Yeah,
which is so beautiful.
Thank
you so much. So check out Emma Clayton. She's got so many amazing things going on, and check out the Uplifted 30-day program as well. Love you so much, Emma, and I will see you guys around. Bye.